to franchise frontiers, empower Black entrepreneurs. So I am Tamika Franklyn, and I'm the founder of Precision Franchise, and I'll be hosting this breakout session today, and I am excited to finally introduce my panel today. The first person I would like to introduce is Hassan Pride. Hassan is the Vice President of Commercial Banking at Valley Bank in New Jersey. He has more than 20 years of experience in commercial lending. He has covered a full range of commercial transactions, from underwriting small business loans through SBA programs and underwriting multi-million-dollar loans to large corporate borrowers. Hassan also volunteers as a mentor with SCORE, which is the nation's largest network of business mentors. That's sponsored by the U.S. Small Business Administration. Welcome, Hassan. Next, we have Mark Hirsch, who is the franchise lawyer and partner at the firm Lathrop GPM. He's based in Washington, D.C. He has over 35 years of experience in franchising, representing franchisors and master franchisees in a diverse range of industries, from startup franchisors to large multi-brand and multi-international companies. Mark's practice also includes international franchise development and private equity, investing in franchisors and franchisees. He is also one of the leaders of Lathrop GPM's Increasing Diversity in Franchise Initiatives. Thank you for joining us and welcome, Mark. And next, we have Ruth Ubachi. She is the founder of CodeWiz, a coding and robotics center for kids ages 6 to 15. Ruth progressed from self-taught coder in Nigeria to earning a master's in computer science and working at companies like Microsoft, driven by her passion for coding and empowering children. In 2017, she established CodeWiz with a mission to help kids unlock their inner genius through coding and robotics, successfully expanding to 30 centers in various stages of development, with the goal of making it a leading name in enrichment education. Welcome, Ruth. Thank you for joining us. And last but certainly not least, we have Nelson Rivera, who is a franchisee for Pure Clean. He is also amazingly the fire captain in Orange, New Jersey, and has earned multiple awards for bravery, including City of Orange Chamber of Commerce Valor Award, New York Jersey State Firemen's Mutual Benevolent Association Award for Valor, and American Red Cross Hero Award. Shortly after starting his career, he worked at a local Pure Clean franchise part-time. He eventually became the general manager, and then in 2019, he opened his first Pure Clean location. Today, Nelson now owns 4 locations in New Jersey and 1 in Eugene, Oregon. Welcome and thank you for joining us, Nelson. Okay, so just a little bit now more about me. I'm the founder of Precision Franchise, and what I do is I assist you with owning your own business in the franchise industry. So I'm known as a franchise consultant or sometimes a franchise broker. And my goals is to understand your goals and to understand what your transferable skills are, the things you actually like doing, to make sure that there's alignment in your in the business that you're interested in owning. So we have insights on hundreds of proven business models where we go through the pros and cons. We make sure that your decision is based on facts. That oftentimes I have conversations where individuals may come up to me and they feel as though they already know what they want to own. They already know that they want this particular brand. And that may be just because you've seen it, maybe you like the product or something like that, and it's not the right reason to want to own that brand. It may not be aligned with you. So that's where I'm able to help in the discovery process. So I wanted to start briefly with just the definition of franchise. What is a franchise? Franchise can be a word that is often misunderstood, sometimes overused. A lot of times I have people that think that because there are several locations or more than one location of a business, that means it's a franchise, and that's not the case at all. A franchise is a business model in which entrepreneurs can own and operate their own businesses using the branding, products, and support provided by an established company, which is the franchisor. Now, what is an FDD? So the FDD is an extremely important document. I'm sure Mark is not his head there. For you to be a franchise, as a matter of fact, you must have an FDD. It is highly regulated by the FTC. The FDD stands for Franchise Disclosure Document, and is a legal document that a franchisor must disclose to prospective franchisees before the franchise may be sold. It is such an important document that you have to have this for 14 business days before you can move forward. So briefly, let's talk about why they're so successful. So we've all heard the statistics. We know the statistics of the success rate of small businesses. In 5 years, most small businesses do fail, has a 50% success rate, 50% failure rate, right? Well, with franchises, it's closer to a 90% success rate. This is largely due to these points. It is an established brand, the fact that it's a proven business model, and the training and support that you do get with the brand. So now let's imagine what it would be like for Black and brown communities if more of us owned and invested in proven business models. Keeping in mind those same statistics that you just heard. We now have the opportunity to truly tap into generational wealth, job creation, and economic empowerment. Another incredible statistic is that this industry is 77% white men dominated. This means that for minorities, women, people of color, it's less than 30%. African American is only 8% in this industry. May I remind you that it's a 90% success rate. If you'd like to find out a little bit more, this is this QR code you can scan, where I provide you with a free online course where you can find out just a little bit more about the industry as a whole and how people in my role are able to help you. This is also another great tool where if you are interested in having a conversation with me, that you can actually see the different types of industries and you can rate the level of interest in those industries. It's a great resource in the event that you are looking to have that conversation. And now, I'm excited to transition into our panel discussion. Thank you. So we're going to start with Ruth. Ruth, can you tell us what inspired you to enter the STEM education industry, specifically focusing on coding for children?
Sure. Hi everyone, it's so good to be here. We drove up from Massachusetts this morning, and just really great to see people like me. Massachusetts is not like this, so it's awesome to see people like me all interested in business. So the question is, how did I get interested in coding for kids and STEM? So I'm originally from Nigeria. I was born and raised in Nigeria. I came to the US in 2010. And back in Nigeria, we lived in northern Nigeria where there was a lot of religious unrest. So for those of you who are familiar with the Boko Haram story, the girls who were abducted and all of that, that's where we lived. And growing up, it was always challenging because you never know when you're supposed to run for your life. You never know when fighting would break out. It was just very stressful, and I was determined as I grew up. People around were kind of used to it. They accepted it as a way of life. But when I was in college, I determined that I was going to get out of that situation, that I didn't want to live my life being afraid, not being able to go out on Fridays because you never know what's going to happen. My original degree is in electrical engineering, And so while I was, completing my coursework in electrical engineering, I started to think about ways that I could leave Nigeria. Now, my parents are educators, and anyone here from Nigeria knows that Nigerians are very big on education. If you have a challenge in your life, the answer to it is education. You can't find a job, go back to school. Can't find a spouse, go back to school. And so, I was thinking, I needed to get out of the situation, so I need to go back to school. I need to go to school, and I want to go to school outside of the country. So I started to think to myself, what can I do to make myself stand out? My parents are middle-class family, so I know that they couldn't afford paying for my tuition here in the US. So I started to think to myself, what could I do to stand out in admissions, to admissions committees? I didn't feel like my education put me in a place where I would stand out a lot. So I started to think, what can I teach myself? What can I do? As God will have it, there were a couple of people just having a random conversation about coding and how this new language had come out. And I got very intrigued, so I went to the internet cafe, I started to Google it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is something that I could teach myself. I don't have to depend on anyone, I don't have to have functional equipment in the lab. All I need is the laptop, and I can make this work. So I started to teach myself how to code. Way back then, the internet was just coming into Nigeria, so the internet speeds were like, 100 and something kilobytes per second, like super slow. Here in this country, when I came, people would be complaining when the internet wasn't loading, and I'm like, yeah, this is blazing fast. But anyways, so long story short, I downloaded the software, I started to teach myself how to code, and then halfway through, I got stuck. So anyone that's ever tried to learn how to code, you know that it's very easy to get thrown off course, and that was my experience as well. And so I reached out to some random person on the internet, and I said, hey, here's my problem, can you please help me? This is what I'm trying to accomplish. And this random stranger gave me 6 months of his time, he mentored me and he tutored me, and because of that, I was able to learn how to code, I was able to complete a project, and it was that project that helped me get a scholarship here in the US. So that's how my journey began.
Amazing. So I want to talk about your business, CodeWix. What qualities do you look for in potential franchisees, especially considering the specialized nature of your programs?
So for context, CodeWix teaches kids ages 6 through 14, like Tamika said, coding and robotics. And at first, it wasn't going to be a franchise. I thought I would just have 5 locations in Massachusetts, but life happened, and I really wanted to bring what it is I had created to the world. Our mission is to impact 1 billion kids across the world, which is a lot, I know. But with God, all things are possible. And so that we started franchising to be able to leverage other people's passions and to bring this business to their communities. So when I'm thinking about the ideal franchisee for CodeWix, we're looking for someone who is passionate about kids, passionate about making an impact on the next generation, has the work ethic to really make the franchise work, because business ownership is not for the faint of heart, and someone who is coachable. Because in franchising, it's all about systems and processes. And if you come in and you say you want to do your own thing your own way, you're more likely to fail. So we're looking for people who have passion for kids, want to make an impact, and someone who's coachable.
Awesome, thank you. And New York is wide open from what I understand from Ruth.
It is wide open.
What are some significant milestones or success stories within your franchise network that you're particularly proud of?
So there've been so many ups and, to be honest, downs, but I think one of the things I'm most proud of, in 2021, Entrepreneur Magazine named us as one of the top franchises for diversity. We have, I think, about 60% of our franchisees are African Americans. So that was very exciting to see.
All right. Last question I have for you is, what advice What advice would you give to aspiring Black women entrepreneurs who are looking to enter into the STEM or franchising industry?
I think I'll just speak from just to franchising in general. I think the very first thing you need to do is figure out your why. Why do you want to start a business? Why do you want to start a franchise? Because like I said, business is ups and downs. And when you're down, it's that why that keeps you going. It's the why I started this. That's like your northern star. So having a really strong why, that's not just about money, is the thing that will keep you going. So figure out your why. Do a ton of research, because there's 4,000 franchises available, which is one of the reasons why you want to work with Tamika or a franchise broker, so they can help you narrow down your options and help you do your research. A lot of people have lost money through franchises. Some people have lost money, but if you do it right and you get the right brand for you, it can be amazing. So really good to have a consultant that has your back. And then 3, make sure that you understand what it takes to be successful. It's not, a lot of people sometimes think I just pay the franchise fee, I open the doors and I walk away. There is work to be done, and make sure you understand what it takes to be successful in that brand. And then the last thing I would say is don't let fear stop you. I've seen a lot of people, shy away from pursuing their dreams or not do what it is that they wanted to do because they were terrified. I remember when I started Codeways, I had the lease for 5 days because I was terrified to sign it. But I signed it, and here we are today. So don't let fear stop you. If it's something that you feel in your heart that you are made to do and called to do, then just go after it.
Okay, thank you so much, Ruth. And as you guys can see, I would like to also say that franchises is also small businesses. It comes from small businesses, so that was great. Thanks again. Give a round of applause for Ruth. Okay, so next we're going to talk to Nelson Rivera, our Puro Clean franchisee. So Nelson, I would like to know, what inspired you to transition from firefighting to the restoration business? And how has your experience as a deputy chief influenced your approach to this industry?
So I became a fireman 16 years ago, and similar to New York, our schedule is unique. We work 24 hours on shift and then 3 days off. So we work 2 days a week for 24 hours, and I wasn't cutting it with the fire department, and I was out looking for a side job, and I found ServPro, which is one of our competitors. And I got a job with them as just a general helper, worked my way up, and then began working for a Puro Clean franchise. And my franchise, what we do is restoration, water restoration, fire restoration, mold remediation, and I also fight fires. So it's hand in hand. We're dealing with emergency situations, and it was just a perfect fit for my personality. And it's almost unique to someone in the service field to be able to walk into a situation where someone is having the worst day of their life and be able to calm them down and let them know that you're going to help. And that's what my franchise does. And it was almost like just changing a uniform but doing the same thing.
Awesome, very good. What motivated you to invest in a franchise rather than starting an independent business? And how has this decision influenced your entrepreneurship journey?
So I worked for about 12 years for different owners of multiple franchises doing providing the same service. And I never felt appreciated. I always felt like I was just a number, just used and abused. And I was out on a job out of state, and I was talking to my wife, and she actually told me, she said, she was an accountant, and she said, why don't we call Puro Clean directly and see what you would need to do to open a franchise? And it never dawned on me, it never, you know, I had my career, I was okay with just working on the side, but I said, you know, why not? And she put me in touch with the people at Clean. She put me in touch with a lender, and about 3 months later, I was opening the doors for my first franchise. So it was pretty cool.
Gotta love your wife. Can you share some key benefits you've experienced by being a part of a franchise system, particularly in terms of the support, training, and brand recognition?
So, going back to your last question and tying into that one, before buying a franchise, I tried to go independent. I tried to get a van and start a small business, and it just never kicked off. There's so many aspects to owning a small business, especially in the type that I'm in, that, you know, I couldn't wear all the hats. I couldn't be a marketer, sales, you know, admin. I couldn't wear every hat. I just didn't have the background in it, and it just didn't work out. Once I got into the franchise system, you know, we're a phone call away from, you know, we have in-house counsel, we have in-house marketing team, in-house sales, whatever area that I'm not an expert in, which is many, I can just pick up the phone and call somebody, and they have the answers. In addition to that, you have, with my franchise, we have about 480 franchises throughout America. Those are all partners. Those are all people who I can pick up the phone, call for advice. You know, I have partners in every market that you can think about, and that's something that you can't pay for.
Thank you for that. Thanks. How has owning a franchise contribute to your personal growth and development as an entrepreneur? What skills have you honed during this journey?
So it was. I mean, it was life-changing. It took me from, you know, the apartment that I was living in to the house that I own now. And, you know, I started off with one franchise. We now have 5. It took me from working for a franchise who I felt used and abused for to eventually buying his business. It changed my life, you know, and it continues to do so. And now it puts me in a situation where I can bring in people that can grow with me, and I can change other lives based off of what I've seen and what I've experienced, and try to run a business differently. And it's literally changed my life and everyone around me. So it's been amazing.
Awesome. That taps right back into the community. Thank you. Last question I have for you is, what advice would you give to aspiring franchise owners?
I would say make a phone call. You know, there's a big difference between franchises and starting a new business. If you're trying to start a new mom and pop or a new business of any sort, you don't have as many resources, right? You can't walk into the local grocery store and ask to speak to the owner and say, I want to know what it's like. You know, what would I need to do to open a grocery store? Same thing for a restaurant or whatever it is. With franchises, you can call any franchise and ask those questions, and they're going to give you those questions. So it's just a matter of making that phone call. Had I never been venting to my wife, crying about not being appreciated, and her making that phone call, I would probably still be working there. So it just takes making that one phone call and you know, being informed of what your possibilities are.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mark.
I just want to add one thing to what they're saying. As you've heard, and you know, there's 3,500 to 4,000 franchise brands in this country. So you've got one service company here, you've got a retail education service business over here. We all know about fast food, but there's really like 80 to 90 or even 100 different types of industries that are franchising. And so it's one thing to know when you're listening to these folks who have built their businesses, they may not be the industries that you all are interested in, but there's so many out there. And then one other thing in terms of talking to prospective franchisees, Tamika mentioned the FDD, the Franchise Disclosure Document. And yes, it's a big, thick legal document, okay? And yes, I've written them and I read them, etc. They're designed for prospective franchisees to give them information. Not all the information, you still did a lot of your homework. But in that FDD is a list literally of every franchisee in the system, as well as franchisees who left the system in the last year. So as you're looking at brands or you're honing in on a particular brand, you can call those franchisees and you can say, did they give you the support? What are the problems you've had? How have they helped you? And you can even ask the franchisor, hey, I'm thinking about putting this brand in an urban market. Can I talk to the franchisees that are in the urban market or something like that? So part of this is just homework, but there's a lot of resources out there.
Thank you. Can we give a round of applause for Nelson? Okay, so next we're going to speak to Hassan. Hassan, in your 20 years of experience, what trends have you observed in the franchise industry, particularly concerning funding and loans?
All right, thanks, Tamika. And that was just great listening to Ruth and Nelson about your story, how you got started. I really appreciate that. To your question, like many industries, has played a significant part in the lending process and bringing more efficiency and just more transparency to the process. Years ago, if you were a franchisee looking to get an SBA loan somewhere, it was a lot of paperwork. And it was a heavy lift for you to kind of go and shop around to different lenders to, get the best loan options for you. But now with technology, everything's digital. Before you would have to, download forms and scan them and sign and fax. And, technology has just made that much more simpler for you to research lenders and to navigate the process and kind of shop around. So I think, like a lot of things, technology has made the process a lot more smoother and more manageable for people.
Thank you. In your experience, what are the common financial pitfalls entrepreneurs should avoid when entering the franchising market?
So one common pitfall, whether you're looking for franchises or starting a business that's not a franchise, is people aren't prepared for the impact that their personal financial credit has on a loan application. And so I think a lot of people, begin to think about a loan in that moment when, they have this desire, there's some action that they need a loan for, and so they go to a bank. And this is the time when I'm thinking about, all the things to prepare for a loan. But in my opinion, that process should start, if you're here in the audience or you're looking at the video and you're thinking that maybe somewhere down the line, I want to start a business, you should be making sure that your personal credit is in order. I've seen many applications get derailed because of the personal credit history. And, life happens, things happen, there may be health bills that come along, but it's a matter of taking the steps to repair your credit. You may not be in the best position now, but take those steps to repair your credit. The other issue is kind of similar along the same lines. Another pitfall is I think there's a misconception that, when you go to a bank, that you're going to get 100% financing for whatever that project is. But you need to be prepared to have some equity to put into whatever project you're looking for. So if we think about typical bank financing, a banker is usually only going to finance about 65% of the loan project, of the project. So that means you have to come up with usually somewhere between 25 and 35% of whatever the total project cost that you're looking for. So if you're looking for $1 million project, you want to think about having at least $350,000 in cash available for that project. So the SBA loan program they help fill some of that gap because you don't need to have as much, but you still need to have some skin in the game. So if you're looking for SBA financing, you don't maybe not need as much as 25 to 35%, but you still should think about having 10 to 15% of the project cost. So for that $1 million project, you want to have cash on hand of about $150,000 and think about having that to put into equity.
All right. Can you elaborate on the unique challenges and opportunities that franchisors and franchisees face when applying for SBA loans or any business?
So the challenge is typically having not gone through the process. It's new. A franchisee, first they're applying for the franchise, and so they're going through that process and trying to navigate that process, and that's probably new for them. And then if they don't have anyone in their circle that's ever applied for a business loan, that's just an added headache. So now you're navigating the process for applying for the franchise, and now you're navigating this process of applying for a loan, and what questions is the lender going to ask me, and what paperwork do I need? And so that, if you don't have anyone in your network or your circle to help you out, that could be a daunting endeavor. But the opportunity kind of is on the other side of that, right? So after you go through that process, you've had that experience, and now you can leverage that experience later on when you think about, okay, I'm ready to expand my business and go for a loan. So you're going through that process. And also, you have that experience, so now you can be that resource for other people in your circle. So each one reach one. So now you can provide that education and help other people in your circle. So I think that's where the opportunity lies in that process.
All right. Last question I have for you is, in your opinion, how can the financing landscape be more inclusive and accessible, especially in especially for minority entrepreneurs in the franchise sector?
So part of that could be, when we have, I know there's this push against DEI, and but I think that's important, right? So as at banks and finance agencies, we need diversity in the leadership positions so that there's a diversity of thought. So if we think about the impact that artificial intelligence is going to have in the lending landscape, right? So there's going to be some good things that come out of that, but then there's, we're aware of racial bias that's in artificial intelligence. So, you need people in leadership positions within the organizations that are aware of that and who can put processes and plans in place to mitigate those risks. So that's one thing that will help with the diversity in franchising. But the other thing that I always recommend is I think there's some efforts on the entrepreneur's part that you can do. And for one, it's like what you're doing here, coming to these conferences and networking with people and going to your local chamber of commerce and meeting bankers where they are. They attend these chambers of commerces and other business networking events. So you want to go out and meet with franchisees and attorneys and franchisors and franchise specialists so that you can expand your network and make it easier for people like yourself to eventually successfully get a loan.
Thank you, Hassan. Let's have a round of applause for Hassan. Okay, so Mark, I'd like to ask you, how do you approach developing and structuring franchise and distribution systems for clients, considering the diverse industries you work with?
Thank you. Also, thank everyone for being here, and I'm really pleased to be here. So, as you heard, there are lots of different industries, and so there's a certain common theme in franchising, which you've heard, is that there's a system and a model, but the way we tend to work with brands that want to build a franchise program, frankly, we just listen. Okay, what makes you different? What is different about your business from another business? What is different about your business from the competitors within your same industry? And how do we approach that into, and get that into the critical documents? So, and I don't want to bore anyone with a whole lot of lawyer stuff here, but what you're going to get from the legal side, you get this FDD, franchise disclosure document. In it is what's called the franchise agreement. That is the basic contract that is between the franchisor and the franchisee. This is what the franchisor is going to do. This is what the franchisee is going to do. This is what the franchisee is going to pay the franchisor, things of that nature. There's a lot more to it. And so what we try to do is determine what really is important. So for example, there may be territorial issues that are critical in Pure Clean. You know, how big should the territory be versus the territory in a code? So the short answer is we listen to see what the distinguishing features are between each business, and then we work that into the documents.
Okay, I think that segues great to the next question I have. What are some critical elements you focus on when drafting franchise licensing and distribution agreements?
Well, again, it's listening to the brand itself. So, again, I can give examples. So for a business that might be a home healthcare business, the franchisee is out there, or each franchisee is out there placing their employees in various people's homes, helping Uncle Joe, Grandma Mary, etc., you know, in those businesses. And so that's what the franchisee does, but the franchisor may also have, we also have national contracts with certain healthcare organizations, or we may be able to help this brand with VA contracts. And so it's important to understand what do we build into the franchise agreement to make sure that the franchisor can do that, and that the franchisee has to do what they're supposed to do. So some of the issues that are critical that we look at are frankly the fees. The initial fee, the royalty fee, the advertising fee, the things that the franchisee will pay to the franchisor. But we also have to make sure that when it's all said and done, the franchisor is making money and the franchisee is making money. So fees is the first part. Second is territory. You'll hear about territorial protections, restrictions, etc. What sort of protection is the franchisor going to provide the franchisee that they won't encroach on their territory? There are a lot of other details, training, transfer rights. You buy a franchise, you might have it for 10 years, 20 years, or a renewal term. Can you transfer? Can you transfer it to your family member? Can you sell to someone else? There's a lot of what I'll call legalese in the back of the contract, but it's critical issues like that. So those are just some of them.
Okay. What unique legal considerations come into play when working on international franchising matters?
So when we work, I mean, first of all, there are franchise brands in the U.S. that we will say export internationally into other countries, and there are franchise brands in other countries that grow in their own home country and also export to other countries, including the U.S. Generally speaking, in the U.S., most brands operate under what we call a direct franchise approach. The franchisor has a contract with an individual franchisee. I keep pointing to the two of you, even though you're not in the same industry. Let's get the picture. Or they may say, we're going to grant someone the right to do 3 or 4 territories or businesses. Generally what happens internationally is you have to talk to the U.S. franchisor and say, what structure do you want when you go into country X or country Y? And a lot of times they won't have a direct franchise approach because they're not going to have the boots on the ground. And so they create a master franchise program where they find one person or entity that becomes, if you will, the sub-franchisor or stepping into the shoes of the franchisor in that country. So the first issue is the structure. The second issue, which really should be done before we even get to that, is there a market for your business in that country? The third issue, do you have protection of your trademark and intellectual property? You may have trademark registrations in the U.S., but you have to have it in those countries. The fourth issue is the economic and legal system in that country operate in such a way that you can continue to expand. So we look at that, and then I'll just keep going. We will help structure the arrangement, the contract, and then we reach out to counsel in those countries that are experienced in franchising and have them work with us to do, if you will, the last part of it, making sure that the contracts comply with the local law, and if there's a disclosure obligation, that they help or they draft the disclosure document.
Thank you. The last question I have, how do you advise clients expanding their franchises globally, especially in regions with different legal frameworks and cultural norms?
So, following up on that, the last answer, we tend to work with, sometimes with consultants, and sometimes, and always with local counsel, foreign counsel. And they're the ones who can help us, and help, not just us, but really help the client understand where the differences are. You know, there may be some very technical differences in terms of money flow and transfer of money, but it may also be, this is not an industry that works well, or you're going to need this sort of structure, or you're going to have this sort of support. And so we get that from people in the country.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Mark. So now I'm happy to say we're going to open it up for a quick Q&A. If there's anyone who have any questions for any of our panelists, now would be the time. Is there anyone? Okay, in the back.
What was the process of transitioning your business from a regular business that you own to shifting it to being available to franchise?
Yeah, you said, what is the process I took to transition my business from a regular business to a franchise business? Okay. I think that you should chime in on that too as legal. But the first thing you want to do is talk to a lawyer. You want to talk to a lawyer that's been there, done that. It's very easy. In my experience, one of the things that I learned the hard way is that you don't want to DIY it. You don't want to do it yourself. You don't want to Google and say, oh, there's a template I can use. I'm going to save some money. You definitely want to talk to an experienced franchise lawyer. So I'll let him give the steps, because the way I kind of went about it wasn't the right way, I would say, and I paid for that. So definitely going about it the right way is critical. But talking to a lawyer is the very first step. Do you want to add to that?
Thank you. Yeah, great. I mean, talk to a lawyer. But in all seriousness, the first thing that I tell clients who have one business or two businesses or three, of the same brand that they want to franchise, is have you been able to replicate it? Has it grown from 1 to 2 to 3? Have you worked the kinks out of it? Because one of the things that you're going to have to explain, and it's not a legal issue, but one of the things you're going to have to sell to a prospective franchisee is, I've got a model and it works. I've had my ups, I've had my downs, and I've worked out the kinks. Even before you do that, I would say, and I've been in the franchise industry for over 35 years, it is a tremendously collegial industry. It's kind of hard to say it's an industry because it has so many different businesses. But because it's a relationship business, people like to help people. Franchisees want to help the next franchisee. Franchisors help franchisors. The International Franchise Association, or the IFA, and you can Google, franchise.org. They have a tremendous number of programs, conferences, conventions, and they have people that are willing to talk to you about that. And so part of it is just the homework. Then once you've kind of worked out what we've talked about, okay, you think you can do it, put together a good team, put together, someone, your accountant, your lawyer, and this is a plug for franchise lawyers, not just franchisor lawyers, but franchisee lawyers. Franchising is specialized. And if you're going to be a franchisee to anybody, or you're going to be a franchisor, go to someone who really understands that industry. You may, your spouse, your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law, they may be great lawyers, but if they're not in franchising, don't go to them. And so your lawyer, your accountant, other advisors, and then franchising.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Can everyone hear me? Testing, 1, 2, mic drop. Okay. Let's give Ms. Tamika Franklyn another round of applause for such an amazing conference. Ms. Franklyn, thank you so much for that wealth of information. If there are any more questions in the audience, feel free to check with them. They'll be here for a while.
Hi, my name is Nelson Rivera, owner of Pure Clean of Livingston, New Jersey. Just want to thank Tamika for inviting us to this panel. I think it was a wonderful event, very informative, and I look forward to being on the next one.
Next person.
Hi, I'm Mark Kirsch. I'm a partner in the franchise group at Lathrop GPM, based in our Washington, D.C. office. I want to thank Tamika for inviting me to be part of the panel. I thought it was great. I hope that we did a great job for the audience. And it was wonderful meeting my panelists, and I think we all should do more of this because it's good to educate people about franchising so there will be more franchisees, particularly in the Black and brown community.
Hi, my name is Hassan Pride, Vice President of Commercial Banking at Valley Bank and also a SCORE volunteer. Hey, Tamika, I want to thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. This was such a great panel. I enjoyed listening to the other panelists, and we just had a great time. It was very educational. Have a great one.
Hi, my name's Nicole Pride. Thank you, Tamika, for hosting this event. I really benefited from it. As the owner of Blossom with Pride, I'm thinking long-term vision now of how I can possibly grow my business and one day make it a franchise. But I've learned so much. I was very inspired by it, and I will be thinking in the back of my mind about franchising. All right, thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm excited to say this was my first live event, and I'm so grateful for my panelists that came by. It was on franchising, titled Franchise Frontiers, Empowering Black Entrepreneurs. My name is Tamika Franklyn, and I'm the founder of Precision Franchise. And you can follow me on all social media at Precision Franchise. My website is www.precisionfranchise.com. Thank you.